right, welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us on BCTV. We love Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights is an opportunity for us to hear from people in our church what God is doing in their lives, and we are grateful for every one of them that comes on here. And we've got some more coming, and looking forward to next week. So if you are watching next week, make sure you tune in. We're going to be having Jean and Norma Troyer that are going to come on, and they're going to be talking about their journey of faith and how the church was a big part of that. And so I can't wait to have them tell their story. So make sure that you tune in next Tuesday night for BCTV right here on Facebook or YouTube. We would love for you to go to our website and tune in there, and that gives us a little bit better quality of video. And so if you are able, but if you're watching this on TV and in your living room, sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're glad that you're here. For those of you that are new to BCTV, this is just an opportunity to kind of hear what God's doing in people's lives. And this is a way for you to get to put a name to a face, but also hear a story to a person. And so we are grateful for everyone that comes on. And if you're watching live, thank you for making time to do this. This is an investment really in your life. And so bravo, way to go. If you're watching this recorded, we know that it takes time out of your busy schedule, and you are busy. Thank you for making time to watch this, and so we're looking forward to that. We are also doing something new. We're rebroadcasting these episodes the same week. So on Sunday, our worship service, we're going to rebroadcast that on Wednesday. And then on Tuesday night BCTV, we're going to rebroadcast that on Thursday. So we're looking forward to seeing God reach even more people through our streaming service. So we're looking forward to that. So, well, I have a special guest here tonight, and it's my wife, and I'm so glad you're here. So she's not nervous at all because no one's in the room, and this is where you kind of prefer to not be like around.
The center of attention.
Yeah, you don't want to be the center.
Doesn't have anything to do with people.
No, no. So, okay, so we're here to talk about books. Books have been a big part of your life. Mm-hmm. And let's just cut to the chase. What we're going to be talking about. My hope is that by talking today, you work at the public library in LaGrange, and you have a heart for books, and so we're going to talk about your journey and how you got there. But you have a passion to help people. You want people to read, but you also want them to be protecting you want as parents to be able to help them to protect the minds of their little ones. So we're going to talk about that because I think there's a war for our children, and especially in literature. So we're going to talk about that. So some people don't know your passion for reading. Has that always been a part of, reading, has that always been a part of your life?
Yeah, it has. I remember going to the library when I was a little kid. My mom was a reader. I encountered several times in English class where we had to read books that I had already read because my mom was a reader. So she'd say, hey, read this book. And then I'd get to school and I'd be like, oh, well, I already read that. And so I'd reread it, and loved to read. It was just a favorite pastime, going to the library, take home a stack of books. I used to imagine, what if I read every book in the building? And yes, I was always weird like that. So
really? From a little kid?
Oh, yeah, from little, yeah.
Now, was that an interest of your mom's to get you reading, or is that you already had it?
It's part of her life, and so then she would take us to the library. I think she went to the library when she was a kid, so it's just
really?
Generational library has always been a place we've gone.
So you're very comfortable in a library. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're so comfortable that on vacations you like to find.
I love libraries.
You torture me and you make me go to public libraries.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
I'm thankful for them, but I don't want to go see them in another town.
I want to see everyone I can.
I know. Why is it so important to you? Why does it drive you so much?
Honestly, the library, separate from reading, is huge just because I think people don't realize what's there. I've had lots of people come into the library or that I've told about getting a card, and they don't realize, we have computers that you can use for free and internet. We have digital stuff. You can get books online and magazines and movies even through the free library stuff. But Some libraries, we have games you can check out, which I love games too. So you can check out games. You can check out at some libraries, kind of a pie pans and metal detectors and Lego sets and
really?
All kinds of things. And you can use 3D printers and you can use sewing machines. And so libraries are just a place of resources and education about how to use those things. And it's free.
And you understand the Dewey Decimal System.
Yes, I do.
Do you think people understand how to work?
No.
Well, you love libraries so much that when we were on vacation in D.C., you took me somewhere that I had to go. Where did we go?
The Library of Congress.
Yes.
And made you get a Library of Congress library card.
Yes, I had to get a Library of Congress a library card. That
Yeah.
was like, okay.
Which are on display at our home library, in our
Yes.
home library.
Yeah. So we got to go behind the curtain, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were there, we had 5 minutes to go through the circle where, if you've seen the movie National
National
Treasure,
yeah.
Nicolas Cage ran down the stairs,
Which
opened
is
the
pretty
door
cool.
right there in the center circle, went down and stole the Declaration of Independence, and we got my picture there and all that stuff. But then we got our license, the library card. We got to go behind the curtain, if you will, and to actually look
Where
at the
we
books.
could have touched the books. And
Yeah.
used them, yeah.
I'll never forget, we saw some of the books that, what was it, that Lincoln, or no, that Thomas Jefferson
I think Thomas Jefferson.
that had donated to the first
Yeah, some old.
library,
yeah.
and it was some very old books.
Yeah.
So books are very much a part of your life, and then you got into working at the public library when you moved here when we moved here. Tell us about that. Why did you want to get a
I
job
was
at the library?
looking for something, part-time. I was still homeschooling the kids. This was in 2012.
Yeah.
Or I might have applied in 2011 because I didn't get the job right away when I applied. The bookmobile would come here to the church. We lived in the parsonage right there, and I was like out of my mind excited when I saw bookmobile. Thought it was the greatest thing ever.
Gets excited
Ran the
about those
kids
things?
outside. Look, it's a library on wheels. It comes to us, and we would check out books. And so then I had just chatted with the ladies, that worked on there, and
Yeah.
about would they ever need somebody part-time, because I was thinking, I'd help out on the bookmobile or something. And
Gotcha.
so that's what I had applied for, and didn't get that job right away, but they called me back later. And I started working in the children's department and at the front desk, and
that's how it all started.
that's how it started.
And you've been there ever since, and now you are in the children's department,
Yeah.
and kind of they're looking to you kind of in the children's leadership
Kind of
part
like
of
managing,
that. Things, not the children's director, but you
Yeah,
manage
like
that
yeah.
department at the present time. So now, wanting their kids to read, I think that was that an important thing for you, making sure that our children were readers? How did you?
Right. Well, tried. I mean, Luke wouldn't pick up a book to save his life, I don't think.
Sure.
But I wanted him to read. Well, I think reading's important just because if you know how to read, you can learn anything.
Yeah.
Literally anything. It doesn't matter if you went to school for it or not. If you can find a book, you can read. I can go off on a whole tangent about that, but we've had presidents that were homeschooled or self-educated just because they could read.
Yeah.
So reading is important. And then it's not something, if it's work to you, or if you don't like it, then read something different or read in a different way or whatever, but it develops your mind, it keeps you sharp.
Oh, yeah.
It develops vocabulary and,
Oh, absolutely.
there's just...
And you, with the kids, they all were different. And so how did you, not only as a parent, but as their homeschooling teacher, you wanted them to learn to read. How did you handle that?
I taught them all how to read, physically, literally how to read, using different curriculums. And, it was fun, learning to read with using music. And so that was fun, but also without the pressure of time. Of you have to meet this standard or guideline by this time, which was helpful, especially Heather and Grace just took off with reading. That's just how they were. And Mabel's brain was wired a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And from the time when she was younger, it just was always more of a struggle with her. And so because I could take the time with her and help her in her own pace, and dealing with her own insecurities of why can her big sisters pour through books and she can't. And it was really something I saw that was an insecurity in her. So just tried to not make it a big deal and let it be at her pace, but finding ways, giving her audiobooks and reading out loud to her and helping her just have ways to still love reading without having the was exhausting for her and hard for her to decode it. And later looking into and seeing, okay, there's dyslexia going on here, so that's part of the problem. But she didn't fall out of love with reading because it wasn't miserable. We found ways to
make it enjoyable.
To make it enjoyable, and introduced her to having it in her ear while she followed it with her eyes, and opened up a world of her loving books. For fun, for something relaxing and enjoyable to do.
Yeah, and she still reads.
Yeah,
I mean, to this day.
She reads for fun, but it also helped develop her speed and comprehension and ability for the things that she has to read when she's doing her college classes and her other things. She's still slower at it, but she's developed skills and abilities by listening, and
which has been fun to watch all of them. And then you get to a boy, which is Luke, and it seems like boys just maybe, not all boys. I think there's a lot of boys that love to read, and that are maybe like, Heather, follow after like Heather and Grace, just are ferocious readers. I was not. I mean, reading is a lot of work. I have to read out loud for the most part, and so I have to read it, see it, hear it. For me, and I'm distracted by any little bit of noise that's going on, so then I've lost, and it's like, and I know we've joked that if somebody like me could get a doctorate, it's like, it does take hard work. I had a lot of discipline that I had to create in order for me to accomplish the goal. But that's what education does, especially, grad stuff, is basically learning to discipline and learning to think.
Well, and it's fueled by your interest and passion.
Yeah, totally.
So,
but, in doing so, our kids were reading books. Did you have to vet them? Like, I know, and again, we're going to get to this here in our conversation, but there are things that potentially are in these books, which books are great. And I mean, you've got the role of Hitler and burning books, and you control a population by what they read. And so you're trying to get them to open their minds and to read, but you're also a Christian. And so you want them to read the Bible, but there's going to be some books outside of the Bible that they're going to read that, how do you know? So how did you deal with, I mean, did you read every book that they were going to read?
It started out that way. It started out that way with Heather. And when, I had only one reading, chapter books and books and I could kind of keep up with her. And then, I don't know, she didn't make it super long before I couldn't keep up. I couldn't get it read before she could. So then it became, and then Grace was right on her heels, and I couldn't. There was no way to keep up with. Now they have two separate interests, and I got to read both of the things, and I couldn't do it. So
did you find it important that you wanted to know?
Yeah.
What they were reading?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to know what they were reading.
So how did you then handle that? Like, what was?
So then I just talked to him about it and just said, okay, I can't read these ahead of time. I can't read everything you're going to read, but you can read these things. I'll help you choose them. I would help choose them. But then saying, have a conversation with me about what you're reading. Tell me about it. Tell me the story. So then I get kind of the Cliff's Notes, even though they weren't super great at summarizing. I get every detail of the book. But we started that from when they were really young. So it's just how we did it, that, okay, I've read this book, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Especially if they were ones that I was like curious about or kind of unsure of.
Sure.
And then, as they were a little bit older, in 2012, so Grace was only, 12. So anyways, working at the library, I could bring home books, and I could kind of skim them and look at them and bring home and see what interests were, and in keeping the conversation open. So we had, Grace wanted to read some scary books, so then I'm like, okay, so I can keep the conversation going with her by meeting her in the middle. Okay, I will find you acceptable scary books. I will look for something that, doesn't turn you off and, mom's just going to shut down everything because she's scared of everything. But let's have a conversation. But I will help you find safe things.
Sure, absolutely.
So generally I would kind of just bring stuff home.
Do they still talk to you about books that they're reading, or?
Grace was just talking to me the other day about one that I had read years ago that I said I wasn't happy with. And she she was listening to it as an audiobook in her drive back and forth to work, and she just loved it. She's like, "What's wrong with you? This is so good." And so, yeah. So
I didn't like that one. Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, and you as a reader, I think other readers know you either like it or you don't. You find out really quickly in a book if you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you're just, I'm done with it. I'm not going to read.
Yeah. Which is, the older I've gotten, that's easier. When I was younger, like, oh, I got to slog through this and finish it. And now I'm
You're
like,
like,
I don't have enough
nope,
time for this.
I don't have
I don't
time
like
for
it. I'm
that.
not reading it.
If I don't like it, I'm done.
Yep.
So, and I'm sure a lot of parents are like you, and so they're dealing with a couple different things. One is, are there good books that are out there that are safe for their children to read? For all ages. And, maybe you're, as a parent, you're busy. And how do you watch over that? Are kids coming home from the library with books? Do parents even know that they're bringing these books home? So how do you deal with, so what are some things that you could say to some of these parents that are, especially with their kids, maybe they're little or maybe they're young adults, but how do we help parents kind of watch over some of the stuff that's going on here?
I mean, I do think it starts when they're really young. I mean, we read to our kids from forever. So it starts out with developing, I guess, an interest and what their interest is in the reading. So you're guiding them by your choices from when they're really little. So then when they get older, like that you're looking at, listening to their interests and pursuing. It takes work. It's a lot of work to spend time to look, to find what it is that they like, what's their interests, to seek out those books, to talk to them about how do we choose books, what kinds of things are you reading, to keep an open dialogue, to remember too, I mean, I love imagination. It's another part of reading that I love. It's a place to just kind of rest and, just imagine and dream or play or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but looking at them and talking to them about what this is fiction, and I don't have to get preachy about it, but we know from when you're young, this has just been always a dialogue with us. These are not true stories. These are fun, and can you imagine, and what if, and wouldn't that be fun? But that doesn't mean it's real or anything. We've just known that. So,
sure.
So it's just, I think, just being in conversation with them, letting them be a part of it, and hearing them and talking to them, and just, I don't know, I guess,
Sure.
conversation.
Well, and you also wanted our kids, and I think there is parents have to decide this for themselves. I mean, absolutely, this is what we've done doesn't mean everybody should do. But I think that we've got a pretty healthy balance, or at least from my perspective, I think we do, that, we understand that there are some books that are just, like I remember when the Da Vinci Code came out, and it just made everybody mad. And it was like, people were starting to believe it as fact, even though it was fiction.
Right.
It wasn't even a true story.
Right.
Now, I read the book, and because of everybody was up in arms about it, I thought the book was very well written, even though I'm not a reader. I thought it was a fascinating story, but none of it was true.
Right.
I mean, they took bits and pieces of reality and wove a story that wasn't even true. And all of a sudden, it made everybody mad. So now the issue is, there are things that we want to teach our children, and we should teach our children. How do you discern what's true? So the Bible was also an important book you would have the kids read, because again, you don't want them just to be educated in this world. You wanted them to be educated spiritually too, so they can discern, what's going on there.
Right. Yeah, having discernment and testing things. And I mean, I'm a big push for think for yourself, and that you are responsible to know God's word. You're responsible for what you do with it, and do you know, and can you test things against it? You're responsible for yourself for those choices. You don't get to say, well, nobody ever taught me that. You have a Bible in front of you. You can read. Again, because you can read. And so it's there, and you're responsible. Check your stuff. Test it against it. Is this true? Does God's word have something to say about this? Do I feel convicted that what I'm reading goes against what God's word says? Or can I in good conscience say, I'm enjoying an imaginary story, and I don't feel like I don't feel conviction from the Holy Spirit or something that this is damaging,
Yeah.
which can be different from person to person.
Absolutely.
It depends on what the things are that you struggle with, what the different, I mean, I deal with books all the way up through 12th grade, the teen department too, and so many of those books for different people, one could be hugely damaging to a kid who's struggling and lost and finds an imaginary fiction story with a character that they relate to, and they feel like it's permission maybe or whatever to explore some of the angst and devastation that the character is feeling. Whereas for somebody else, they could look at it and they could see empathy and understanding, and I see this character and I see maybe that's like my friend and maybe that my friend needs something. Yeah. So it depends, and that's where you as a parent come into it and you go, okay, I know where my student is. And I do at the library. I tell parents, the teen department especially, that you should be with your kids. There are some libraries intend to be fairly not as conservative as me in general, and there are some libraries where they don't want parents allowed in the teen department. It's only teens past this point, and I strongly disagree with that, because this is something we're going to do together. And we're going to go in here, and I am going to say these books, I would think that some people might think like Harry Potter or the magic or whatever, and I'm looking at some of the stuff that I look at in the magazines when I'm ordering books that are have far more potential for damage than some of the imaginary stuff.
We've already,
because they see themselves in it,
Sure.
and they feel like they find answers, even though it is fiction. A big thing in YA is realistic fiction, so they're seeing characters in things that they're really going through, and it's dangerous.
Oh yeah, and this is why I think parents cannot check out when it comes to their children reading. Now you can they're going to move on, and your goal is as parents, I think, is to be able to, number one, teach them to discern. So if I'm looking at a book, a side that's outside of the Bible, I need to be able to know, is this something that I should read or not? Is this good or not? Is this something that I can label as it's just fantasy, it's just fiction, it's not true? Or is this something that could damage my own biblical or my own worldview when I look at the world? And the world right now is looking at literature and the written word as a means to an end, and that is to change our culture. Are you seeing that happen on like, is it I kind of almost think it's like a war for our kids.
Oh yeah, it feels, some of the stuff literally feels predatory to me, the way some of the stuff is written. The fact that I find board books for toddlers called Gay BCs, it's pursuing something, it's normalizing something, it's making you desensitizing, to teach toddlers and babies words like this, to that I can't buy a picture book that I can't trust, that if it's about families, there's gonna be same-sex parents in there. It used to be, okay, you're gonna deal with maybe divorced parents. And I get that's real, and they talk about kids being able to see themselves in the things that they read.
Sure.
And I understand that, but it's the language of the picture books for the kids and is it's leading, it's shaping, it's not innocent.
Yeah.
So
now, with some of the younger books, are kids missing it?
I think that they are a lot.
Okay.
I do. And some of that, some of it, okay. So there's, in the background, you see, obviously they have to put in a same-sex couple that's in the background. So the kid's going to notice that? Probably not. Do I notice it? And do I, feel like, man, do I want to support that? For me, I can't keep everything, There's going to be things that are there. Again, can you have a conversation with your kids about it if they do notice it? Yeah. If it is something, or can you choose, you've read the book, or while you're reading it, you see something, this is not something I want to say, or this is a mindset. And again, it's not like wanting to be super preachy about things, it's just conversation. We're going to encounter this is the world that we live in, and God loves these people, and so how do we keep it as a conversation. So yes, so in the younger, yes, it's in there. But people reading and language and stuff has been something which I didn't realize till like the kids were in junior high, and I was looking at possible online classes for the kids. I looked at a couple of the English classes.